we are now like in the singularity. Like this is the moment. 10 years ago, this was like far off dream at best. It seemed very improbable. And now we're like actually in the moment that we used to like talk about at the lunch table in a very not serious way. And so the thing that drives me is I've been waiting for this my whole life. And I think it's going to be incredible, hugely positive, awesome for the world. I'm excited to get to work on that. I also think some of the alternative visions painted by other companies are like quite terrifying. I'm gonna make sure that gets pushed against and is not what happens. But the main thing of what's different than 10 years ago is like, we're actually in it. I think it is both true that it is all one crazy exponential and any one moment is not like the tipping point. And also that we are somehow in another one of those decisive periods where the curve can go one way or another, like it was when we started 10 years ago.
That's Sam Altman, and he just said the word, singularity. But now, not as a joke at the lunch table, this is the moment, and the man building it admits he has spent zero time thinking about what comes after. Listen to the rest of that conversation.
Most startups are like, I'm gonna go build AI agents for enterprise vertical X. Now, that actually will work in a lot of cases. It'll be very competitive, and it may not be like, in fact, I'd say it probably won't be like the most successful defining startups of that era, but it will work. But given how much the landscape is in flux, I am surprised there are not more people doing the like, I'm gonna go take on the crazy thing with this completely new set of tools. And also being willing to truly internalize the fact that scaling laws are going to continue and planning for the things that are not possible or economical this month, but will be possible in 2 years, 4 years, whatever. So it seems like an unbelievable time to be starting startups, and there's very fertile ground, but there's also, and no judgment if this is what people go for, there's this incredible temptation to just like go apply today's agents to the easy wins. And I get it.
One thing that you've said throughout the years is you basically try to, whenever you meet someone new, you try to like plot where they are on your mental model of who they are as a person. And then the next time that you meet them, you basically want to figure out how far or how fast have they progressed. Did that sort of thing, and like doing this across maybe thousands of people, impact your ability to kind of say, okay, the model is this intelligent today, it's this intelligent 3 months later. Suddenly you can like plot this out and it makes it easy to believe in the growth?
I think there's like a general thing behind both of those, which is I developed a great trust in exponentials, in people or companies or models. I don't think that, subjectively at least, it doesn't feel like watching model progress is the same as like watching a founder develop. But I think the underlying belief system about the world is the same. If I were still advising startup founders, this is the most important thing I would try to get them to wrap their heads around. And it is evidently hard for the same reason that there's like free money left in the market for betting on high growth young founders. And it's like the market has still not adapted enough for that. I think the market has also still not adapted enough for like the exponential of model progress is going to continue. And it is okay to start working on things now that require smarter or cheaper models.
This idea of constantly shifting chaos, how do you get good at it? How do you get good at operating in a chaotic environment?
I think it's just practice. There are a handful of things that I think no matter how much you intellectually understand, take a lot of reps to like emotionally be able to handle. And operating in a lot of chaos and trusting that you'll figure it out and it'll be okay, and like this is not going to be the thing that kills you and you don't quite yet know how you're going to solve it, but you're going to figure it out.
He is laying out a world where the scaling laws don't stop, the models get cheaper and smarter every few months, and he is telling founders to bet on capabilities that don't exist yet, but will. The market has not priced that in. Most people are still building for today's intelligence level. Now listen.
I think like a clear mission and then a deep understanding of the problem together do a fairly good job of pointing to what you should do. You won't get it all right. You'll still like at some points overly expand or not be ambitious enough. But we are like very focused on this is going to massively empower people. It's going to be, choppy but wonderful. And it's extremely important to us that power in the world get more decentralized and more spread out. And in fact, like one of the biggest AI risks I am worried right now is like AI authoritarianism and, a small number of people or companies thinking they need to control the world. That'd be very, very bad. But given this mission, we feel like we need to figure out how to make AI extremely abundant, extremely cheap, extremely powerful, put it in everyone's hands, and like have a lot of it to get to use. And as we look at what's in the way of that, there's a whole bunch of new constraints like chips and energy and data centers and robots and all the pieces that need to come together to build this platform so that we can like enable this mission. Now, there's a bunch of things you can build on top of that platform. Like you can go build every vertical, every startup. We have no desire to do that like that. I think a decentralized economy is important and good. And I would like us to just be really great about producing these units of intelligence and make the world like, man, this is just, incredibly capable, an incredibly great deal. And we're going to imbue it in every product and service. And so I think that's very instructive to us about what we have to go do. Interestingly, the kind of key inputs to like extraordinarily abundant, high quality, low cost intelligence, a lot of those things like energy, like robots, are also things that you really want in a world of abundant intelligence. If ideas are plentiful and there's all this great stuff, we still live like in a physical world and we still want stuff to happen. So, we need to be able to make stuff happen in that world. And I have wondered if like the fact that energy and robots are going to be so important to staying on this intelligence infrastructure ramp, and also the things that you need immediately after it are energy and robots, says anything deep at all, or is just like the most boring, obvious thing, which is like to produce anything, intelligence included, you need to manipulate matter. But it is kind of interesting that we need these new areas so much for what we're doing now, and then so much more immediately after.
What do you think your biggest bottleneck is? If you just say like, we want this to continue scaling unabated, what is the biggest bottleneck that you can see?
Transistors and then electrons in that order.
Transistors and electrons, that's all that stands between us and abundant superintelligence, according to him. He frames AI authoritarianism as the real danger, a small group controlling the machine god. And then in the same breath, he describes a global infrastructure project that only a handful of companies can possibly build. The thing he says he fears is exactly the path he is on. Now, you have to listen to this.
Charlie Munger has this awesome line where he's like, every time I've thought that I understood the power of incentives, I've like underestimated them. How do you like successfully align all the incentives of the different partners as well as the people inside of OpenAI?
Well, companies are amazing vehicles for this to start. As a kid, I was like very fascinated by the Industrial Revolution, and I understood it as a bunch of technologies that happened to come around the same time, and for some puzzling reason happened to scale at around the same time. And, I would like talk to my friends or my parents or whatever about whether it was like this technology was the most important invention or this one or that one. And my read of it from my current lens is like someone who has now spent more time thinking about business, is that the important invention was the joint stock corporation. And before that was invented, and you had these like kind of family businesses that ran on trust, and you had to know everyone, and you didn't have the idea of a corporation, you didn't have the idea of like stockholders really. And then all of a sudden, this new thing was invented. Countries, like the sovereigns of the world, granted this sort of a new kind of status, really, a thing that didn't exist before. This very powerful thing that we're going to let these new entities emerge and not give them the power of a state, but give them like much more than the power of a person. And fundamentally, this was about, incentive alignment, liability protection, which is another kind of incentive alignment, the ability to like amass capital. And all of a sudden you could do things beyond what a family business could do. And that environment let people raise money to develop technologies, very speculative nature, pool capital, figure out ways to get different companies to sort of specialize in different ways and interact with each other, serious financial systems and new kinds of instruments. And this was really an incredible thing. And the idea of a company has done a huge amount to align incentives of very large groups of people. Now, millions of people can be shareholders of a company. There's a bunch of other things we do, but I don't want to diminish what has been this incredible invention and like the just ridiculous overperformance of capitalism in human society. Like a chart that I think people should look at much more than they do is the like fall of extreme poverty over the last 100 years.
Like infant mortality and all the other things.
Any of them that you want, any of the associated things. If you like kind of look back at that's like the most zoomed in view of the last 100 years. But if you look back at kind of economic growth, quality of life improvements, all of these things, and you just like drew out all of human history, and you put the line when like the company was invented, you would see like a really quite interesting change in the shape of that curve after it. beyond that, I think we have a mission that transcends any amount of economic power anything else could ever do, and that's probably more important.
He just told you his operating system. The corporation is the greatest invention in human history because it aligns incentives and pools capital at scale. Not democracy or public oversight, but the joint stock company. And the mission he describes as transcending all economic power is being executed entirely through that vehicle. I don't know how anyone hears that and sleeps easy. Anyway, let's continue.
I think like there are still major AI alignment issues to solve and safety issues. And there are still major economic issues, future of jobs, all of that kind of stuff. But I think the fight of the current moment is, are we going to head to a world of AI authoritarianism or liberty? Are we going to decide that because of the very real safety issues and economic issues that, you know, we want one single model to be the machine god or the company associated to do that? Or are we going to say like, you know what, it may be a little messy, but every time that humanity has traded off its liberty for safety, it's been a long-term net loss. And so we are going to put this in the hands of people. We're going to empower them. We are going to let society express its ideas and use this technology in the way they want. Of course, according to some guardrails, but you know, with a lot of power and potential. And I really care that we do it that way.
When you were talking with Patrick Carlson on stage, it must have been like a couple of months ago, there was this fascinating thing that you said, which is basically like you will talk or text with 300 to 400 people a day internally.
I text more people than anybody else I know. I don't think this is like a good thing. I think this is actually like a bad habit.
Why?
Because it takes up like most of my time and I get like I have a very short attention span now.
Interesting. What does that enable you to do that like otherwise you couldn't?
I have a huge amount of context. I mean, I'm like a AI model that's not that smart, but just has like a huge amount, like a
short-term context on like whatever's happening right now and then forget. Does that enable you to make decisions that other people wouldn't have? Like what company decisions
better or not? I don't know. I mean, it lets me make different decisions than other people would.
What different decisions have you made in the last like 12 months that you wouldn't have made if you didn't have so much context?
I don't know if I have like a specific one I can share publicly, but there's like a lot of things where, you know, because I know about some random research breakthrough impending that is going to like affect some customer or some supplier or whatever, I can make a slightly different decision in the moment. And if I hadn't known it that morning, I would have made a different decision. It would have been worse.
One of the things that I think you are the best at is kind of like long-term thinking. And yet it also seems like things are moving so quickly and the world is changing so fast that planning 20 years out and then like looking backwards, I don't even know if that makes sense. How do you think about this? Is your time horizon shortening?
I actually don't try to plan backwards. I try to have like a small number of strongly held convictions about the future that are like directions to head towards. But then I try to like plan forwards from the current state about like, what can we do now? What can we do this year? And sometimes you do have to like plan a few things on a 5 or 10 year horizon, but I try to plan forward guided to a small number of beliefs about the future.
He describes his own mind as an AI model. Short-term context, massive input, then forget. The person steering this doesn't plan backwards from a desired future. He moves forward day by day with a small set of convictions and reacts to whatever research breakthrough lands that morning. So amidst the alignment, economic disruption issues, the strategy is to just keep going and trust the direction.
And a kind of rigid worldview that they try to fit. But what happens is they end up like chasing, you see like space companies turn into AI companies or whatever. And like having just a small number of things that you deeply believe about the future and being very flexible on the rest and staying very true to the core is helpful.
One of the people that I know the best, his top, company core value is just critical path and just focusing on the critical path and like staying focused on the key drivers of whatever the biggest roadblock is, just unfuck that and then go to the next one and do that again. How do you think about critical path in your own life when you're kind of like trying to make these decisions?
I mean, for so long now, I have felt focused on this singular goal of abundant intelligence and a belief that like incredible human prosperity will come from that as long as we don't have a weird power concentration and kind of a new kind of authoritarianism. It has been fairly clear to me at any given time what's on the critical path to get there. And I have not been tempted by, should I reconsider the goal or should I think about these other things? I have been thinking about that a little bit more recently of like, okay, if we really are close to superintelligence, what's next? But it's this, that's kind of how I subjectively feel we are close. Is the first time in like more than a decade I've thought about what is the next thing.
And is it the ranch?
I mean, eventually there might be a few
ranch.
more things on the way, but that is the eventual plan.
If you had to like try to guess, what else does Sam want to accomplish before he ranches?
Look, superintelligence is gonna get built like that. Not done, but like we are on the glide path
to the get there is
abundance and like wide access to it, and making sure that it ends up with like broadly shared prosperity. I'd really like to accomplish that. So maybe that's the thing that I've been like thinking about as the next thing. Like, how does technologically we're going to accomplish our mission? I think a lot of our worldview and a lot of our beliefs about safety and the impact it's going to have also, we've gotten those things done too. But, you know, very broadly shared prosperity and a real focus on enabling the world here. That seems very important.
I've heard you say again and again this idea of get on planes in marginal situations. I've done this a huge number of times.
How's it working out for you?
So far it's working pretty well.
Good.
I think
it's very solid advice.
When was the last time that you got on a plane in a marginal situation?
Well, I can't say what for, but very recently, and it worked out.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I really didn't want to. It was like a very inconvenient 2 overnights. Didn't want to do it. New baby, whole mess, but I did.
He just told you the timeline is so close that he is thinking about what comes after superintelligence for the first time in his life. The ranch, that's where his head is at. Broadly shared prosperity is the stated goal, but the path runs entirely through a corporate structure he compared to the most powerful invention in history. And the last thing he says is about getting on a plane for something he cannot even disclose, leaving his newborn at home because the moment demanded it. That urgency is real. It just has nothing to do with you. Now he used the word singularity and meant it. He described his own brain as a context window that resets every morning. He called the corporation the greatest alignment tool ever created and placed the entire future of intelligence inside one. Alignment issues unresolved. Economic disruption unplanned. A glide path to superintelligence with no off-ramp. If any of that resonates with you, hit subscribe. Because the only thing moving faster than the models is how little time any of us have left to understand what is actually happening.